Let me just start by saying it's not easy. It is amazing in 2025. So much has changed, and yet it's still extremely hard for women to figure out how to do a career and to have a family. And I wish it weren't so hard. I think I had the benefit of being raised by a working mom, which in hindsight, I benefited so much from it, but it was very hard to have the almost only working mom in the suburbs in the 1980s.
Welcome to Marketing Your Way podcast, a show for women in marketing and creative fields who are ready to rethink what's next. I'm your host, Anastasiia, marketing strategist, agency owner, career mentor, and once upon a time, a corporate VP of marketing. This is your go-to space for career reinvention, whether that means launching your own business, pivoting into freelance, or finding a role that finally feels like a fit. Each week, I bring you honest stories, actionable strategies, and mindset tools to help you move forward with clarity and confidence. We'll also dive into what's actually working in marketing right now, from personal branding and client acquisition to AI tools and emerging trends shaping the future of our industry. And just in case you're wondering, yes, this podcast comes with a Ukrainian accent and a whole lot of straight talk, because it's time to build a career that works for you. Let's dive in. What does it take to build a brand that stands the test of time and still feels deeply human? My guest today, Christina Panos, has been the Chief Marketing Officer of the Corcoran Group for over 2 decades, leading one of the most beloved and emotionally resonant brands in real estate. From redefining luxury marketing with Corcoran's Live Who You Are philosophy to mentoring a 65-person creative team, Christina has built her career on one simple truth. Real estate isn't about transactions. It's about people. In this conversation, we talk about the evolution of Corcoran's brand, the role of emotion in marketing, how automation is changing the industry, and what it really takes to sustain a creative career while raising a family in one of the most demanding cities in the world. Christina also opens up about mentorship, leadership, and how she's learned to balance ambition with joy over the course of her 20-year journey. Welcome, Christina. I'm so happy you're joining us today on Marketing Your Way podcast. Let's start from the beginning. How did your career in marketing begin, and what first drew you to this field?
It was not a very linear path. I grew up in the New York area, and my mother was a producer for CBS News for 20 years. And so I thought that I was going to be in the television business. I wanted to be on camera. I wanted to be a reporter. And my whole life was sort of revolving around that. I got my start right out of college at a local news station called New York One, which is a 24-hour news station, very bare bones. And the entry-level job there is a camera woman. And you are a sort of roving camera woman. You collect news, you ask questions, and then you sort of bring the news back to the station to be compiled into stories. And so I had this incredible year of boot camp in New York City, driving around to every borough every day, collecting stories. And after a year of that, I realized I loved the storytelling aspect of it. I loved communicating with people and finding a way to make that come to life on film. But I did not really want to be in front of the camera. And I didn't know that television was for me in the end. But I loved a piece of it. And so what I did was decide after a year not to stay at New York One. And I was looking around for my next opportunity, and someone suggested an advertising agency, which I had never considered ever before. And so I met someone at J. Walter Thompson, which is actually no longer around, but it was a storied advertising agency, part of WPP, only recently doesn't exist anymore. But I interviewed there, and I got an entry-level job there as an assistant account executive. And that was really my entree into the advertising world, and had really an incredible 4 years or so there. And, you know, anyone who works at an agency, you know that you get to touch every part of the business. And so it was a really great boot camp for me. And I realized that I loved advertising. And after about 4.5 years or so, a boss of mine who had left to go to the client side at MasterCard took me with him and asked me to MasterCard. And so I was there for another 4.5 years or so until I ended up going to Corcoran.
Okay, amazing. So your career was pretty much all your time was marketing. So I love that. This field is like either you love it or you hate it. You cannot be in between. In between doesn't happen.
And it's interesting because a lot of the people that I started my career with, very few are still in the business. So I think it weeds out those who are not really passionate about it for sure.
Absolutely. So what's one thing that might surprise people about you that isn't on your resume?
One thing that would surprise people perhaps is that I am Greek and I'm a Greek speaker. And I grew up speaking Greek and just at home with my family, nothing, not fluent. And over the years, it was very hard to keep my Greek going. And I decided after going to Greece with my kids this summer that it was something that I just could not give up on. And so I have started back with my Greek lessons and getting Greek on my resume. It's I can't really write fluent in Greek just yet, but I'm on my way there. And I think especially when you're older, learning another language is really a challenge for your brain. And so it's been something that interestingly, I think it's really stretched my brain a lot and has enabled me to be sharper on other fronts. And so I highly recommend learning or boning up on a language later in life.
Absolutely. One of the languages I want to learn, I speak Ukrainian and Russian, just based on where I grew up, right? But one of the languages that I feel I need to learn is Spanish because I'm based in Miami and 65% of the population speaks Spanish. That was a new report at home. So it's a very useful language around here.
I think you're right. And interestingly, when I had my children, I knew that my Greek wasn't good enough to speak to them and have them learn it. So I had them exposed to Spanish since they were young. And, particularly my daughter, who's 15, she's, almost fluent. And so it's a gift. It's, I think, one of the most important languages to learn.
Absolutely. Just on the Greek note, my name is Greek. Now I know that is
Anastasiia, we would say.
Yes. And that's exactly how we say it too. And I love Astoria neighborhood of New York. That is my favorite neighborhood, if you ask me. And it's like fully Greek.
It is amazing. I
Yes.
grew up with my grandparents living in Astoria, and so I had a lot of exposure. It took a while for the rest of New York, a younger crowd to catch on, but now it's super popular, and it is one of the places to get great Greek food in New York for sure.
Yes. So you've been in Corcoran's brand steward for over 2 decades. Through shifts in ownership, technology, and consumer behavior, what has been your guiding philosophy through it all?
My guiding philosophy has really been that real estate and selling real estate is one of the most emotional, personal, important decisions of your life. And when I got into the business, when you asked me about my career, was it linear? Yes, it was linear for the marketing and advertising, but not linear for real estate. I got to it sort of after all of those years. And so I had the benefit of a pretty solid brand building background before I got to Corcoran, and residential real estate didn't really attract people who had that kind of experience. And so when I got there, I was particularly hired at a time when Corcoran had sold the company in 2001, and Barbara Corcoran was no longer going to be associated with the brand. Her name would be, but not her likeness. And the brand was really built around her and her face, her iconography. And Corcoran was Barbara and Barbara was Corcoran. And so it was really a puzzle for them how to move on once Barbara was no longer associated. And that's really why I took the job originally. And when I got there, I realized that there was a big gap in the advertising and communications in the real estate business, because it's so clear to anyone who's ever bought a home how emotional the process is. It's usually accompanying a big life event. Maybe you're having your first child, or you're getting married, or you just graduated college and you're getting your first home, or you're an empty nester. And no one was talking about it in those terms. And so that's really where I decided to plant the Corcoran flag and really focus on the emotion surrounding the real estate purchase. And that's where our tagline and our kind of philosophy of live who you are came about, which really means that home is the ultimate reflection of who you are and how you want to live. And we really want to be the people to help deliver that to people. And so I think making space for the emotional nature of real estate has been kind of my passion for all these years, and developing work that brings that to life. And our agents are amazing. They, this is a business, this is a person-to-person business, right? And so they know this because that's how they get business. Every day they connect with people and they get referrals. So I'm just sort of bringing to life on camera and print what it is that they do every single day, which is enable people to live these really meaningful lives in places that are very personal to people.
I really love that about Corcoran brand and the emotions that you bring to the table. I happen to be I'm still in real estate marketing, was my agency, but I was on a corporate side when you guys opened up offices in Miami. And I remember following really closely your brand because we wanted to see what you're going to do, what the message you're going to put out. So from firsthand, I do know and I see the brand that you've built, and it's amazing. I love the emotional connection that you bring up with everything that you do. So what do you think many brands still get wrong about emotional connection in marketing?
Nobody said they get it wrong. It's just very hard to do right. And actually, today's an interesting day to be doing this podcast because we just launched today the latest iteration of our brand campaign called Be Home. And what we try to do with the campaign is bring to life everyday moments that don't seem special, but they don't need to be special, because the best thing about home is that you can be yourself and have moments that are meaningful, that are not necessarily, extraordinary. Even if it's just, brushing your teeth next to your husband in the bathroom, which is the subject of one of our spots, or in this case, putting sunscreen on your kids. What mother doesn't struggle with putting sunscreen all over their kids? So we bring these everyday moments to life, and I really try in each of the spots to touch people emotionally. We have a huge spectrum of emotion throughout our catalog of spots. Some are funny, some make you cry, some are a little bit more on the edgy side. And it's just very hard to do well. It's hard to do it and not for it to feel contrived. And when we're in creative development for these spots and we're coming up with potential scenarios for these stories, my agency and we are constantly sparring because they're throwing out ideas to me. And I'm like, no, that is like, that feels like a pharmaceutical commercial. It needs to feel every day, and it needs to feel aspirational and beautiful, but it has to have a very relatable element to it. And so I don't know if that people get it wrong. I mean, I admire anyone who tries to bring emotion into the work, because I think, let's face it, the brands that we connect to emotionally are the ones that we have the longest relationships with. But I just think it's really hard to do right. And so I've really made an effort to work with people that are the best in their fields, in terms of people who help us with the wardrobe and the spots, the photographers, the DPs, the directors, and hope that by working with really professional, incredible people, that they bring an excellent skill to the work, and that makes it feel realistic. But it's just not easy to do.
Yes, I can definitely relate to that, even with the podcast, right? Because it's not really about mentoring of women. It's more about what does that bring out in their life, right? Is that more freedom of time, more freedom of creativity, all of these things. And it's not easy to communicate. It does take some trial and error to see what resonates with your audience. So it's really understanding really well who is your audience and who you're talking to. So again, you guys doing it really, really well. So right now you lead a 65-person marketing team, many of whom are women. How do you cultivate creativity and balance in such fast-paced environment?
First of all, I believe very much so in having a fun culture at the office. Corcoran has been known for its culture for so long. Barbara sort of started this off when she built the company. She had so much energy, and she really treated everybody like family. And there was so much energy and kookiness at the office, and from the parties that she threw to, just the way that she talked to people in the office, face to face. And Pam Liebman, our CEO, has carried that on for, all the years since. And I feel that it's a big responsibility of mine to really make my team a place that people want to work. And I have an open door. I try to be extremely available to my team. I really try to have fun with them. I want them to really want to come to the office or come to work and feel like the team, people on their team are members of their family. And I hope I'm not overreaching by saying I think a lot of people feel that way on my team. And that's really important to me. Obviously, I've been there for 21 years and I wouldn't be there if I didn't feel so connected to the people that work with me. Just yesterday, some people on my team and I did a TikTok, and, we're always looking for ways to have fun and put ourselves out there. And I believe that the more comfortable that people are on the team with each other, the more comfortable they will be about speaking up. And I want to create that environment where people of whatever level they are on my team are encouraged to give their ideas, to raise their hand, that no idea is a bad idea. I mean, I can't tell you how many great ideas I've gotten from people at all levels on my team. Just today, as I mentioned, we launched this campaign, and I'm seeing people on my team post about it and in their own words. And I'm really floored by how they are writing about it. And I'm learning from them, actually. I'm really blown away by it. And I love that they're engaged. I love that how many of them are posting, even if they didn't work on the campaign, they feel ownership, which I want them to feel, because we really are one team. But I really believe that the more comfortable people are in the team, the more willing they will be to speak up. And I think that's really the only way to grow, is to put your ideas out there. And even if we don't go with them, just to have spoken up and to have had the dialogue with me, I think is really valuable for them.
Absolutely. That was one of the benefits when I was in the corporate environment, is that there was nobody and the team was like belittled, meaning that no one was too little of a title to speak up at the meeting or to give the idea or to give some type of feedback on any campaigns. And that culture really cultivates the team as in a whole word what team is, right? And it's beautiful. And I love your TikToks, by the way, and Instagram. I follow you on Instagram. I saw that. I saw one that you did with the new magazine that you guys just published. It was really fun.
First of all, my social team's incredible and amazing ideas. But once in a while, I do have an idea, but it's not original. It's from my 15-year-old. And I really enjoy it. It's first of all, it's a way for us to connect. And I think it's fun to do it with the people on the team. And it's probably, in a way brought us all together a bit more. And it's something we all have a lot of fun with. And so it's been something we've started the past couple of months, and I'm having a great time doing it personally.
Yes. So what does mentorship look like for you? And how do you help younger marketers find their voice and confidence early in their careers?
Well, it's a little bit of what I said before, which is encouraging them to speak up. I really do believe in mentoring the people on my team, not necessarily because I have, I don't want them to feel like, I'm preaching to them. I like to lead by example. It's almost like parenting, you want to sort of lead by example instead of just, telling all the time. And I love to see that there are people who work underneath me whose team really respects them, and sort of all the layers on our large team, it trickles down. And I want to model being a boss that is respectful and that is interested in what people have to say. And also, I really believe in work hard, play hard. It doesn't need to be serious all the time. It's okay, hence the TikToks, to have fun and still be, great at what you do. But there is a big difference in my team between, a lot of my team is servicing agents all day. I work with very few people on these sort of big brand campaigns, but I want everyone to feel part of it. And so I try my best to include them and for them to sort of understand how I'm thinking about the brand. Because like I said, in the real estate business, there's not that much talk about brand advertising and brand building, because the agents really are the brand, as they should be. They are the stewards every single day out there representing the brand. But I do like to try to impart my education in brand building on them. But I want to support their careers, and I want them to feel like they can always come to me. And whether it's something that they like or don't like, whether they stay at Corcoran or not, I want them to have had the experience that they were able to speak up for themselves and advocate for themselves and advocate for their points of view. Like I said, I get great ideas from everybody, and I hope that I've had that influence on them.
Amazing. Yes, I've done the agent marketing as well in my corporate career, and it was a lot of fun working with agents, but also it got a little bit of repetitive type of tasks that you constantly do and explain and things like that. So having experience of also working on a corporate brand, it makes a big difference for those who are working on agent marketing day to day. So I'm glad that you're bringing all your team into that experience, because that's the sexy part of marketing, right? I feel like building brands and all of that is very exciting. AI and automation are changing the way we do marketing faster than ever before. But here's the thing, you don't have to figure it out on your own. That's why I created the Marketing Your Way community on Slack. It's a free space where women in marketing can come together to share AI tools, swap automation workflows, and run ideas past each other. Whether you're leading a corporate marketing team, running an agency, or freelancing on your own, this is where you'll find support, inspiration, and real-world examples you can put into action right away. So if you've been curious about AI, but not sure where to start, come join us. It's free, it's collaborative, and it's built to help you work smarter, not harder. You can join today at marketingyourwaypodcast.com/community. I cannot wait to see you inside. So marketing has changed dramatically in the last few years, and I feel like it changes dramatically all the time, right? It's not just last few years. So how does your team approach marketing automations today and AI?
Yes, it has changed a lot. When I first started, our primary way of advertising was through the New York Times classified section. I always say that was really the number one task of my department, was getting the classifieds out every week. And how it changed. I think that for us, automation represents an opportunity for us to help the agent be more successful and be more efficient. A lot of the AI that we're employing are tools that help the agent save time and help them market a listing efficiently and quickly. The minute that the listing comes on the market, we have these packages where they can get a brochure and get photos and get videos. And so to me, for now, the biggest piece of automation is enabling them to spend more time on the person-to-person part of the business. That really is what makes the business grow. Obviously, they have to service the listings, but that doesn't require their human touch. That doesn't require any of their, doesn't require experience. That can now be automated. And that's an incredible gift that I've seen over the years, because that's very time consuming. And frankly, depending on your age as an agent, you're either very deft at doing that or you're not. And as the technology gets more complicated, it's harder for the older agent to keep up with that. But at the same time, that older agent imparts so much wisdom because they've been in the business for so long. And in particularly, the New York City, I could speak because that's, obviously where our hometown is. It's a market that has a lot of, co-ops are a big part of the market, and that requires a lot of experience in dealing with co-ops and co-op boards. And so it's just an example of why maybe an older agent has so much value, but it's almost a waste of their time to do a lot of, sort of more transactional tasks to support a listing. And so, they don't have to automate every part of it, but it's nice to know that that is becoming easier for them to do. And for my team to keep finding more solutions to help them be more efficient, to me, that's what we're focusing on right now.
Yes, part of it is also seeing how the team can spend more time being creative, right? So not only automating the processes within the agent side, but whatever we can do in the marketing departments that can help ease that administrative tasks. Because as marketers, we all know that there's a million administrative tasks we have to do before we get to work on a creative idea, which always felt so drowning to me. And owning a business or running your own agency is still the same thing. You have so many other things that you have to do before doing the fun part. So my goal in my business right now is to automate as much as possible. And I've been really on a mission to try to reframe my thinking on everything that I do is kind of workflow. So the things that I do repetitively, like what is that workflow? And is there a way I can delegate that workflow to one of the automation system. Like maybe that triggers this triggers that, and all of that. So this conversation could last for hours because, of course, so much that, I don't know, with AI coming to play, it's so available to everybody to use. I almost feel like it's the internet, like when it's became so widely open and for everyone. So it is compared to that. So it's just more of, you really have to embrace it. You cannot be scared. And even as you mentioned, like the older agents might be not knowing how to use it, or, in Ukrainian, we say that we have two different ways of talking to people. So like if you talking with respect, it's one of those pronouns that we use differently from you.
Same
in English. Yes. English, it's just one pronoun. So being friendly with AI, if that makes sense, is what's important right now. We all know that it's such a relationship business, right? And the more time that the agents can spend on building those relationships, that's what makes their business grow, brokerages grow.
It's the same with parenting. Bringing it back, my goal is to use AI for more of the sort of, menial tasks that parents have to do, organizing trips and to-do lists, so I can spend more time with my kids, quality time.
Absolutely, yes. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we are coming to one of the topics that I'd love to talk about. You built an amazing career, right? You are the CMO of Corcoran. You've been there for so many years while raising your kids. You have 2 kids, I believe, right? Yes. So how did you approach motherhood and career building, especially in the city like New York?
Let me just start by saying it's not easy. It is amazing in 2025. So much has changed, and yet it's still extremely hard for women to figure out how to do a career and to have a family. And I wish it weren't so hard. I think I had the benefit of being raised by a working mom, which in hindsight, I benefited so much from it, but it was very hard to have the almost only working mom in the suburbs in the 1980s. She had a very cool career, and I think that that added a fun element to it. But I struggled a bit having a mom who missed all of my day-to-day school stuff. I mean, obviously she didn't miss the important things, but she couldn't be at the PTA meetings, and she couldn't, come volunteer, which was important to me back then when I look back on it. And so I knew that I wanted a career, but I also wanted enough balance to be able to have more time for my kids, especially as they were young. And I knew that there are certain industries where you just can't do that. It's as easily. And that would be maybe, being in banking or being a lawyer. And luckily, I didn't really have much of an interest or talent in those areas. But I think picking marketing was a good choice because the hours are much more reasonable than a lot of other industries. And I think part of the reason why I have stayed at Corcoran so long is because I have developed obviously my own equity there being so long. So if I had to run out to, a play or, to do something at the school, it wasn't as frowned upon as it would be in a lot of other environments. But I sacrificed a lot. I mean, I remember, breastfeeding in my office with, I had glass doors and I was like hiding behind my desk, and then getting a messenger to messenger the breast milk down to my apartment. And I missed so many things that I wish that I could have been at, but I found a place that enabled me to have enough balance that I could feel good about. You have to just accept that when you are going to be a working mom, you are going to miss things, but there's so much benefit to working in so many ways, obviously for yourself, as an example, for your children. And it adds so much to life to have a purpose and to have something that you love to do. But I say to this day, my kids are older now, and it's still very hard. And it also requires a lot of ability to micromanage and ability to multitask. And I think the one thing that a lot of working moms have to realize is that the one thing you'll get is less time for yourself. And I made peace with that a long time ago. I was not going to be able to necessarily, It's changed a little bit with COVID, at the aftermath of COVID, but couldn't work out in the morning like a lot of other moms that I would see on my way to work. And I didn't have time necessarily to go get my nails done and, things like that. But I sort of pared down what was important to me. And that was work and family, of course, and friends and et cetera. But I think you just have to accept that you're going to make sacrifices. And I think that's hard. And I have a lot of sympathy for people on my team who have kids. I really respect people who go back to work. It is not an easy choice. And I don't have an easy answer other than I just really tried my best to keep all of the balls in the air. And I think I picked a career and a place that allowed me to do that.
Absolutely. So it was my first daughter. I have two also. My oldest one is 11 and the baby is almost 2. Still the baby.
Mine's 11. He's the baby. So I get it.
I was my older one. I went back to work when she was 2 months old. And luckily, I lived very close to the office. So I was able to come and see her during lunchtime and things like that. But I do feel I've missed a lot of her growing up, the development, the first step, things like that happened. But at the same time, I do not feel like she feels I've missed a lot, if that makes sense. They do not know. They know the amount of time that you are there and the amount of time you provide to them instead of like being on your phone or reading an article or reading a book, but you actually actively with them. I think that's what matters to them at that moment. With the baby, I work from home now. And even though I'm here and I see all of the things and everything, I still feel disconnected, if that makes sense, during my workday because I have to do things. I have calls, I have this, I have that. And so it almost feels the same. Like, yes, I have a benefit of coming out for like 5-minute break and playing with her, picking her up and things like that. So that's a beautiful thing. And I don't take it for granted because I know a lot of people do not have a luxury right now to work from home in those situations. But I think that it's just the amount of quality time that you offer when you do have that time together. One of the things now that I have to do with my 11-year-old is that every Wednesday I pick her up from school. And we do some fun stuff. I don't work. I do not look at my Slack channel. I do not reply to my team. And everyone knows that. And that's kind of like our established time.
It's important. I agree that it's quality versus quantity. And it's always harder for the parent than it is for the child. They don't necessarily, first of all, they don't remember that much from the early days where it's painful to leave them at a couple months old. I really got involved in my kids' schools. I have from the beginning. And because I feel like the kids love when you're involved in their school, they get to see you. And I had a mom once say to me, "Oh, I had no idea that you had a job." And I thought, well, that's just the best compliment I've ever gotten because somehow I have projected that I'm involved, even though, yes, I am carrying on this big job. But I wouldn't change anything. I mean, I'm so glad that I stayed in the job, and I'm so glad that now that my kids are older, I have a lot more time to dedicate to my job because they need me less.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by the AI Playbook, my favorite community for learning how to actually use AI to simplify your business and gain back 5 to 10 hours a week by automating your workflows. It's hands down the best resource I've found for marketers and entrepreneurs who want to leverage tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Relay, and more without needing a tech degree. Inside, you'll find simple tutorials, real-world examples, and a supportive community of business owners who are testing and sharing what's working right now. And yes, I am a proud affiliate because I've personally learned so much, like how to build full content systems with AI, automate admin tasks, and save serious time every week. If you're curious, head to marketingyourwaypodcast.com/AI. That link supports the show, and I'm so grateful. So success, right? What is success? And how does that definition of success changed over the years for you?
I spent a lot of the majority of my career kind of being under the radar. I just put my head down and worked for the longest time. And I for lots of reasons, I did that. And over the past couple of years, I have started to come out a little bit of my shell and start to engage more and do things like your podcast, et cetera. And I wouldn't say that it makes me more successful or it's changed my idea of success, but I actually, at the end of the day, enjoy a lot more engaging with people about my career and about what it is that I do. And it's not that it's made me feel more successful. It's just allowed me to actually, I think, enjoy my job even more because it's the feedback that I get from people. Not that it, again, makes me feel more successful. It's just that I think I feel more alive now that I'm engaging with people a bit more and putting myself out there. For so many years, I was really adamant about not doing any press or putting my name out there or my face out there. And I thought it would compromise something. And I don't think that anymore. I think it's really added to my enjoyment of my job. And I have really enjoyed interacting with more people about my career and what it is that I do. But to me, success always is about my kids and how happy they are, and the saying, you're only as happy as your most unhappy child. And it's been nice because they really enjoy my job. They really get engaged with it. They love Corcoran. Every time they see if we're walking down the street and we're passing a competitor store, they always say, "Mom, turn the other way." They don't want me to even look in the direction. I don't know. Success to me is a little it's more well-rounded than it used to be. I need to have this title or I need to, have achieved X, Y, or Z. And I don't really think of it that way anymore. Success to me is enjoying what you do, being around people who you love to work with and sharing it with your friends and your children. And so I feel like I'm at a point at this very moment where I'm really enjoying it. And to me, that feels successful.
I love that. In my case, I remember I started my US journey in college. And I remember my first months where I would have like this major headaches every time from just talking in English and had to think and write and read and everything, right? And the fact that I'm going to age myself right now, but it's almost 20 years ago. And now I do this podcast. If you asked me 20 years ago, if this is something I will be doing, I would say absolutely no. So I think that just success is learning also about things that excite you, things that you love. And even if it feels uncomfortable at the beginning, just giving yourself a chance to go and try it. Nobody says you have to continue doing it. I wanted to launch this podcast and I happened to interview amazing women like you and connect and chat and see and that helps me grow. I hope it helps our audience grow. So yeah, success is very multidimensional everywhere.
Well, I commend you for putting yourself out there. I think it's very hard for people, myself included, to deal with discomfort and to deal with challenging yourself. But every time that I have, and I put myself out there, I have not regretted it. It takes a lot to kind of get yourself over the hump. And so good for you.
Yeah, thank you. I actually was listening to the podcast, The Diary of CEO, the other day, and he was mentioning a story where there was an ant and they drew a circle around the ant on a piece of paper. And the ant would not pass by that circle because it saw it as a border. And the comparison to that, they did the same thing to a big tarantula. And they drew a circle and he will not push around that circle. But then the second that it was pushed to go over it, you can draw as many circles as you want. It will still not see it as an obstacle anymore. So I think that that's a great example that we drew so many circles in our head on what's possible for us and what's all the limiting beliefs that we have. But the second that you cross that little circle, you'll see that there's so much more to it and there's nothing to be scared about. And yes, it's uncomfortable at the beginning, but then you just do it and then it becomes your second nature at some point.
Yes, I agree with that. It's the fear. I was reading something the other day that said something along the lines of, the dream needs to be bigger than the fear, and that's true. Like, you really have to want something so much that you're willing to be uncomfortable and feel a little fear, and I think it's a good lesson for back to rearing,
Yes.
but it is, pushing kids outside of their comfort zone is something that I think is important, and they grow a lot from, and they might resist, but it's always something in my own life that I've seen with my own kids that they've benefited from it. You just have to push them in the way that's not going to make them resent you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just wondering, thinking back on the things that kids say, right, when they're little. They're like, oh, I'll be a president of the United States one day. I will do this. I will do that. And then the older they get, the more their dream shrinks, right? And shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And I'm just curious at what point that happens in our life where we start saying that, no, maybe I don't deserve to be that. I'm not good enough to do that. So it is very important. The story that we tell ourselves is really the most important story out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not as related, but, I'm a big proponent of single sex education for women. And I myself went to a single sex college, and I think it definitely had a big effect on me in terms of me believing that I could really do anything and I wasn't distracted. Nothing against men out there, but in a time in my life, I wasn't distracted by, parties. And I certainly went out, but there was this sort of collective feeling amongst your classmates that we were all there to do something great in the world. And so I wanted to impart that on my daughter, although I knew she would never do it for college. And so she's been going to a single sex school since kindergarten, and she's in ninth grade. And I have seen, what you're talking about. And I think it's this feeling of having limited beliefs has been delayed in a sense for her and her classmates, because they all build each other up so much, and they are not really embarrassed to speak up or to be smart or to have, an idea that's out of the box, because it's just themselves that they have, to be embarrassed in front of. And they've all known each other for so long. And I've watched her and her friends grow up, and I think I'm so excited to see what they're going to do as a group of women, because I do think the education has really enabled them to push themselves and to not really be ashamed of who they really are, and not really want to sort of mask all of their awesomeness and how smart they are, because they've been taught to put it all out there,
That's such an interesting perspective. I've never thought about it from that way, because I grew up going to both sex schools and colleges and everything. But I think there is definitely something to it. So let's go back to work a little bit more. So what excites you most about the future of real estate marketing?
What excites me the most is really to continue to do what I'm doing, but to do it with new collaborators. Now, I feel as though, real estate marketing is, I've kind of never really looked at the other people in our category as kind of like our competition when it comes to brand building. I've always tried to learn from other brands out in the world, luxury brands, consumer products, et cetera. And those brands that, as we talked about earlier, have been able to make that connection. And so I want to just keep pushing the envelope of what Corcoran can do, and work with more and more interesting collaborators on the creative side. And that's been one of the best parts of my career, is being able to do that. And Corcoran, as I hope, is sort of known as having worked with a lot of amazing photographers. We worked with Tina Barney many years ago. We worked with Annie Leibovitz. I just worked with an amazing photographer named Emily Levesque Green. And I think that that's just been such a great source of inspiration for me, and really brings a level of sophistication to the brand. And so I hope to be able to just do more of that and continue to tell stories about home and people living their lives in a way that reflects who they are and how they want to live. And that's the part that really excites me, I guess.
Beautiful. So for people who are starting out, especially in the marketing field, what advice would you share with the next generation?
So let me just talk more broadly. I feel as though, COVID shook things up a lot in terms of sort of the in-office environment and the feeling of people wanting to work from home. Nothing against your current situation of your own working from home. You're going to pass because you're the working mom. But I feel for the younger generation, working from home is not a great idea. I think that you lose out a lot on learning from other people, from just the interpersonal skills that you develop when you're working in an office with people, and you are at the proverbial water cooler, in our case, the kitchen at Corcoran, and you're talking to people, meeting people from different departments, learning how to really just office etiquette, learning how to connect with people, being able to impress or do something for somebody more senior to you that they'll remember. I mean, those are the moments where careers are made. Those are the moments where you really have growth. And I think if you're behind your computer at home, yes, I know you could be in your slippers, or you can go out for a run, but I don't believe you can be as committed to the career as you could be if you were, or not just committed. I don't think you're going to grow as fast as if you were at, I know this is not for every industry. I'm talking about my own industry. And so I really encourage the younger generation to reconsider their feelings about working from home. And it's also then up to the company and the management to make the office a vibrant and fun place. And I think there's some people who do that so well. My nephew just started working at Coinbase, and he can't wait to get to the office every day because they have great food. And and look at Google, Bloomberg, they have really nailed that. And of course, not every company can do that. We're trying in our own little way at Corcoran. But I think that's one piece. I also think it's sort of this old adage, but be the first to get there and the last to leave. I really believe that showing how hard you're going to work and how you're really willing to do whatever it takes, any task. I can't even tell you, even with a CMO title, I was still, doing the most basic tasks if I was asked to do them. I was never too good, nor have I ever been too good or too senior to do anything, really. And I think that some younger generations, I don't think, have sort of embraced that as much. And maybe it's old school of me, but I think it really impresses upon the people that you work for when you are that committed and loyal, that you are willing. And it doesn't mean that you are, dumbing down your job, or it doesn't mean that you're, being a doormat. It just means that you are willing to do what it takes to make the team work, and I think people remember that. I certainly do, for the people who work for me. And hopefully people can find passion in what they do, but also be realistic, that a job is not going to answer all of your problems, like a job is not going to be everything to you, that you have to also cultivate a life outside of it, and I do think the best thing that the younger generation has brought to the forefront is the idea of balance in work. I don't think that my generation, even no one expected balance. No one knew to look for balance, and no one thought they deserved balance, you name it. And I think that is a belief that needs to go by the wayside. And you cannot be good at your job if you are spread so thin that you can't enjoy your personal life and your interests, your hobbies, your family. There just need to happen sort of at the right time and place. And that's something that I think has been a great advancement in the workforce.
Absolutely agree to what you said, especially about the remote work. Every time that I do have either interns that they are interning at the company, or any young people just out of college, because my work environment is remote, I always encourage them that before you decide that remote is what you want to do, you have to try the office. You cannot disregard the office altogether, because there's so much opportunities. The people that you meet at your actual workspace, not behind Slack channels, but actual workspace that you communicate, that you make friends with, that you go grab coffee or grab lunch, that's the people that will at some point advance you in your career one way or another. That's the people who will be your godparents for your children. Like, there is to that point where you are building those relationships, and that's the time to do it. You cannot just kind of put yourself in a forum. And I experienced it, as to your point, where I realized that I needed, so I make an effort to meet my clients for lunch. I made my effort to go to my clients' offices just to show face and have a meeting about something, even separate from work. And I also make a point to do this podcast, because that was another thing. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to have an avenue where I can just build a network of amazing women and men. Of course, I'm just interviewing women, but you know what I mean? It's just more of having a network of people who have similar passion.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, As I mentioned, we launched this campaign today, and the people that I worked with on this are people that I have literally known for 20 years. I have been working with so many of the same people, not at Corcoran, outsourced. And I met them at other jobs. In some cases, I met them through people from other jobs that I kept in touch with. And I have a network that goes back a really, really long time. And I have called upon those old friends and contacts over and over in my current job. And I wouldn't have them if I was not in the office making those relationships. And you never know where your career takes you. You never know who you're going to interact with again or need again or want to work with again. And so you just don't get that when you're behind the computer. And there's so many people on my current team that I've gotten to know because we were just in the office, having fun, making these TikToks or whatever, that I would never have gotten to know if they weren't in the. And I know some people don't want to hear that, but we're of the generation where we can impart the wisdom.
Yes. Okay, so now we're coming to almost the end, and this is our fire chat. So, few quick little questions. Favorite ad campaign of all times outside Corcoran?
Priceless. It was the advertising campaign I worked on at MasterCard, and it's iconic. It is still being used 30 plus years later, and it was very formative to work on at the beginning of my career. So there's no question, it's priceless.
Awesome. Okay. A book you think every woman in marketing should read?
Start with Why. Simon Sinek, who happens to be someone I went to high school with, but that's not the reason. He has, to me, written the sort of a seminal book about what brands should be thinking about at the core of who they are. And it's something that I remember him telling me about before he wrote the book all those years ago. And he actually came to Corcoran and did a little exercise with me. And the things that we sort of put on the back of a napkin back then, I'm still adhering to today. And I think following that book allows you to really be timeless in the message of your brand and really stick to what it is that defines why you do what you do. And that's the book I would choose.
Thank you. I haven't read it, so I'm going to definitely put it on my Kindle library right now. A podcast you listen to every week.
Smartless. I just love these guys. I don't know what to say. I don't have my Smartless mug right this moment by my side, but I have so many things that I need to listen to for work or, serious topics I need to consider that those guys make me laugh. And I just look forward every Monday to the new episode of Smartless. And I've listened to every single episode. So yeah, I'm one of their big fans.
Awesome. A brand you personally admire right now?
I am very excited to see what's going on at Chanel with the new creative director, Mathieu Blasi. I think that I love the show that he just put on, and I love seeing how timeless brands can evolve, stay who they are at the core of their brand, but modernize and evolve and appeal to new generations of people, but to really still maintain the core of their heritage and what made them special in the very first place. And I have a feeling he's going to be doing that, and I was just wowed by his show.
Amazing. Yes. Mantra or life philosophy you live by?
You only live once is my philosophy. YOLO. I really believe that. I think that we forget that because we get so bogged down in our day-to-day, and every day's a gift. And there's no, we all say like, oh, I'm going to do this, soon, or I'm going to get to that, next year. Now is the time to do the things you want to do. And it's hard. Like we talked about, so many things. There's fear, there's discomfort, but it's something that I, don't always succeed in doing, but I really do try to live life to the fullest and really appreciate the fact that it's only going to happen once. Can't turn back time. And if you want to do something, do it today.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. If you have that in the back of your mind, you'll make different choices, right? Throughout your day, throughout your life. And lastly, how can people connect with you, Christina? You are full of knowledge, full of experience, such a pleasure, such a positive person to meet. And I would love to know how can people connect with you.
I'm on LinkedIn. And I have an Instagram. I have a public Instagram, and my handle is Christina Panos _CMO. And that's where you'll basically see a lot of the work that I do and office life, my TikToks. Really just, the joy of being a Corcoran come to life. I would say those are the two main places. And of course, always explore. We have a great brand section on Corcoran.com. I would love for people to explore and see the history of our campaigns. There's so many great campaigns over the years I didn't even touch on, but I feel like that is one of the hallmarks of Corcoran. And I'll say in closing that in the age of AI, I feel like creativity is the one thing that cannot be commoditized. And that's why I love being creative and having the opportunity to do that at Corcoran, because I think that's the one thing that, you really need a human to do and for it to be relatable to other people. So let's hope that continues.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Christina. It was such a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
And I hope to have you back soon.
Anytime. And best of luck in the podcast. I'm really, I'm in awe of what you've been able to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that's it for today's episode of the Marketing Your Way podcast. I hope you're walking away with fresh ideas, new insights, and the confidence to take your next step. If this episode spoke to you, please take a moment to leave a review. It helps more women in marketing find the show and build a marketing career on their terms. And hey, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Until next time, keep building your marketing career your way.